They should start kicking ass, just like it said at the beginning of the program.
Man of the hour, tower of tower, too sweet to be sour.
Sending your ass on the jabroni jet to the other side of the territory, brother.
The Alabama Hammer.
Nightmares are the best part of my day.
The goods from the wood.
Hot damn.
Welcome to the Goods from the Woods. My name is Rivers Langley.
I am Pat Riley.
I am Mr. Good, and I demand of the hour, the tower of power, and too sweet to be sour.
And today we are joined by the host of This Is Rad and one of our favorite people and our friend. Give it up for
Kyle Clark.
He is here.
Hello.
Man, I've been excited for this.
Oh, me too.
So I know just from, talking to you in real life and on the podcast that you have an affinity for the dirtiness that is the 70s.
Oh, it's my favorite thing on earth. If I could get a time machine, I would just go directly back to 1975 and never return and be dead by 1990.
I'm shit, man. Let me shake the hand of somebody who feels the same way.
Thank you so much.
I've never admitted this on the air, but I'm actually old enough that I can remember the 70s.
I'm so fucking jealous.
It was so much better than today. It was, if I could live back in just the end of the 20th century, I would never come to this dump.
Yep. No, Goodnight gets it. We're getting the time machine together.
Yeah. And we'll just go back. Every time it hits 9/11, we'll just reset back to 1971.
Oh, based on poor lifestyle decisions and drugs, there's no way I make it to a second 9/11.
Yeah. And just another thing that comes up on our episodes all the time, the King, Elvis Presley.
God save him.
So we're merging for this deep dive episode. We're merging those two concepts. This is The Goods from the Woods presents Elvis in the 70s.
We can't go on together with suspicious minds.
Yeah, or as I like to think of him as comedy Elvis. Because this is like when Elvis ceases to be like a bellwether pop cultural clarion of American culture and goes into just being a hilarious reference.
Okay, all right. I want to say
If
something
you
about
want
that.
Elvis to be funny,
Yeah.
he's the punchline, 70s Elvis.
I think actually mid-60s Elvis, when he was doing the dumb movies,
Right.
is actually more ridiculous.
Really?
Because the 70s Elvis has a certain retro fun cool about him.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the mid-60s, like, Tickle Me Elvis, all those bad movies and
Yeah.
stuff, it doesn't even look like Elvis is enjoying himself.
This
in
is
that
like the
era.
Elvis that like skydiving Elvis that marries you. These are all the Elvises.
But those are all things
of
that
this
came
time.
from this existence. So I don't even think of it as that of the time. To me, this is the reason it becomes that is because this is Elvis at truly his truest form. Like this is final evolution of Elvis, where he has transcended and he is now just a deity walking amongst men.
Well, and it's something that we're definitely going to get into because
You know when he became a god? Do you know when he transfigurated or whatever the word is?
I would say the 68 comeback special.
When he wore the white suit and sang, "If I Can Dream," that was his on-screen apotheosis.
So for the episode, I went to the goddamn Los Angeles Public
Fuck yeah.
Library.
Oh yeah, GK.
I got George Klein's book. I've got Elvis by the Presleys, and then this one. Whoops, I'm just
books all
throwing
over
books
the place.
around.
throwing shit around. This is Careless Love: The Unmaking of Elvis Presley, which is based on all the Elvis stuff I read.
The original
Peter
title was just
Guralnick.
Pills.
This is sort of
The unmaking of the New York Dolls.
this is sort of considered by Elvis diehards because there's the Alan, who's the guy who wrote the book in '81.
Oh, Goldman.
Yeah, he's like.
I have that book. I could have brought it.
Oh, did you? Yeah, so I didn't get that one because all the Elvis message boards I read, they
Waste of time.
hate that
Waste
guy.
of time. He was a scandal biographer. He would write biographies of Elvis. He did John Lennon. They were all 1,000 pages long,
Yeah.
and they were all really bad.
Just
all
all
that
rumors.
post Kenneth anger, like we're gonna write super scandal books.
That's exactly right.
And it had like Clifford Irving elements where like some of it was kind of made up.
But we mentioned the 68 comeback special, and this is Elvis in the 70s. And Pat asked me this right when we started talking about planning this episode, is like when, and I guess Goodnight brought this point up as well, when do we consider the beginning of the 70s? And I think that this third evolution of Elvis, because you can sort of break down Elvis's career into, in my opinion, there's 3 stages. There's original young rockabilly Elvis.
G.I. Elvis, yeah.
And then he went into the army, and that's the BC.
That's the end of
That's the BC
OG
AD
Elvis.
of OG Elvis. He comes back from the army and primarily becomes a movie star, which takes up most of the 60s. And then with the 68 comeback special, I'm sure there's subdivisions.
And the 68
I divide the early era into Sun, Louisiana Hayride, and then RCA movie
Yeah, I can
star.
see that.
Right. Well, there's definitely subdivisions in there, but just generally there's these 3 stages, and then the late stage, what people would just generally refer to as Vegas post Elvis kind of starts with the 68 comeback.
Yeah,
special.
this is
How recently have you guys seen? Because it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, the
I see
68
this stuff all
so
the time.
good.
Well, the 68
yeah.
special, I like to think of it as Elvis trying to be Tom Jones. Like that's what the feel of it is
Yeah.
Elvis
I would
trying
say
to be
from like a
Tom
production
Jones.
standpoint, it has that feel. But like man, like that is a man with nothing left to lose,
Yeah.
giving it one last shot, and it works.
Oh shit, yeah.
It worked like a motherfucker, dude.
Yeah.
I will say this: like, I have a weird obsession with like the Elvis movies. Because
Dude, it's-
they're real odd, and also like they kind of transcend genres, and yet are also kind of their own genre. Because like
Yeah.
stuff like Clam Bake, where you can literally see Elvis dying inside an Hawaiian shirt, just being like, "I'm on a beach and I hate everything." But then like Change of Habit is a fucking great movie.
But not the scene with the autistic girl screaming. That is a channel changer.
Okay, sure,
Every
sure.
damn time. Y'all are okay. So you deep Elvis fan, right?
I would say I because I know so many hardcore Elvis people, I consider myself like a medium level Elvis fan where I have a lot of enthusiasm, but there's many detail levels that I miss out on just because like I've got a life ahead of me and there's always going to be more Elvis.
Yeah. I'm sort of a medium to hardcore Elvisologist, kind of lifelong too. So I've seen a lot of his damn movies.
Yeah.
I've got a quick side story because it's the moment I realized that I like Elvis more than most people.
Yeah.
Is I was at Petey's place when that place used to have a show.
Uh-huh.
And Ron Swallow, our good friend of the show,
Nerd Goat, now on
Nerd
iTunes.
Goat, yep. Let me go up at like 1:30 in the morning there as the last set. And
boy.
it was during a period where I was trying to find some new material. So I was just asking people for a word and I'd just try to do as long as I could on a topic.
Yeah.
And somebody said Elvis. And I did 25 minutes of improvised riffing on Elvis that ended with he lived good and he died good.
Yeah.
All right, man, I'm with you, bro. I like this because you are just echoing so many of my thoughts. Can I paraphrase something that we're going to get to here?
Yeah, totally.
I don't want to spoil this, but we're going to eat the Fool's Gold sandwich.
Yes.
Oh,
the
and
full
so
gold sandwich is in the oven as we speak, and I'm going to bring it out.
I'm sure we get to more details of this, but the short version, this is the Elvis got all his friends together and flew them all to Colorado for this thing.
Yeah.
The reason I've always admired Elvis has less to do with the music and anything else.
It's the lifestyle.
It's the
Yes,
lifestyle.
100%.
If I was rich, and if any, as far as I'm concerned, normal red-blooded American was rich,
Yeah.
I'd be doing exactly the same thing. Flying all my friends to get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Buying everybody
Yeah.
cars.
Shooting light bulbs in my pool. Hell yeah.
So I wanted to get the first. I have basically have this broken down into a few sections. Those being Vegas,
Yep.
cops,
Okay.
food,
Yep.
karate,
Oh, thank God. Because that's one of my big ones here.
Yeah.
Karate.
and drugs.
Yeah.
All right.
So
These
Let's
are all
get into this. Let's get into this. We need a direction
Like
here.
what we've already set up is that Elvis is great.
oh yeah. So the first thing I want to hit, and I believe right when we finish this, the Fool's Gold sandwich will be ready. So we'll hit the food section next. First section is Vegas, and what I wanted to talk about is the fact that typically when people describe like late Elvis, they always say, "Oh, he was a Vegas act," like as if that's a bad thing. But the truth is, he sold his Vegas show based on, or I should say, Colonel Tom.
Colonel Tom did.
Sold the Vegas show based on the strength of the 68 comeback special.
Yes.
Negotiated all of his Vegas stuff, and the opening night in Vegas sounds incredible.
Ooh.
And I have, you see on here, I have Elvis's actual words in red, like Jesus in the Bible.
Because what's the difference, really?
So I'm gonna have Mr. Goodnight read the part of Elvis, but I just wanted to read a little bit because this is incredible. Elvis's Vegas debut at the International Hotel and Casino, which is today the Westgate in Vegas,
Which was the Hilton in between.
and it became the Hilton during the run, was July 31st, 1969. Barbra Streisand had been the featured performer for the hotel's opening at the beginning of the month, and as soon as the last word of the last song left her lips on the evening of July 30th, Elvis's people went around the hotel and meticulously ripped down all of her posters and advertisements. And below, this is a description from the Las Vegas Sun of the first show. Presley, dressed in bell-bottoms and a black tunic, was greeted by the roar of 2,000 audience members as he launched into a straight-ahead rock version of the Carl Perkins hit Blue Suede Shoes. The hits kept coming as Elvis performed favorites from his catalog. Midway through the set, Elvis addressed the crowd.
Welcome to the big freaky international hotel with those weirdo dolls on the walls and those little funky angels in the ceiling. And man, you ain't seen nothing till you seen a funky angel. Before the evening's out, I'm sure I'll have a complete and utter fool of myself. but I hope you get a kick out of watching.
Yeah, so he said there's nothing like a funky angel. Because
he's right.
He's just he's riffing on the room.
Do you want to know what I think's up with this stuff?
What's that?
If you look at the way Elvis's concerts were sold, they were sold as much, especially at this point after the excitement of the special, as a personal appearance and evening with Elvis as they were a concert.
Right.
Hence he keeps talking during the concert. It is early concerts in between songs. He just starts talking about his
very
life.
Vegas, show kind of feel where it's you're not as much going for a straight concert. It is this kind of like we're drinking cocktails and we are being entertained
and eating
by like a famous person. It's that Sammy Davis Jr. structure.
Yeah, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Little Richard had a Vegas show very much like that, relatively around the same time. It was a little bit after, but it was like very much of the same. It's the same genre.
Well, the thing is very clear at this point, though, is that Elvis is terrified of talking on stage
because he hasn't performed in 10 years.
He stammers. He makes funny noises.
There's nothing like a funky angel.
But check this
Memphis.
out. This is the same show. By the end of the show, this is what they say. And by the way, if you want to hear more on Elvis's stage banter, you can check out the Bargain Bin 2 episode where there's an entire goddamn album.
I've still been chasing that. I want it so goddamn bad.
We got it. It's right here.
I have the download.
Shoot a brother a digital copy.
I got it on download somewhere, so you can torrent it.
Oh, yeah. I gotta hunt that down.
But this says, this is from the same article. Presley attacked the material with a fiery determination. He was all over that stage, producer Felton Jarvis recalled. I mean, he almost hurt himself. He was doing flips and cartwheels. And all kinds of stuff on Suspicious Minds, which made its debut that night.
Really? Can you believe that? Can you imagine just Elvis doing flips with Suspicious Minds plays?
He got down on one knee to do a flip across the stage, and then he did a roll as well. He was about half crazy. After the final song, Elvis left the stage and gave his manager a big hug, his body shaking from spent energy and raw emotion. And between 1969 and 1976, Elvis performed a total of 837 shows.
That's a goddamn showman. That's what that is.
And to all sold out audiences. And Colonel Tom Parker continued to live in the hotel until the mid 80s.
Of course.
Yeah. So
he had so many gambling debts.
Yeah. So y'all talk about Vegas Elvis. I'm getting the fool's gold sandwich.
Yeah.
One thing I think people forget, he wasn't fat yet.
No.
Yeah,
he didn't get fat until after 75.
he was svelte and he was tan, but I can't imagine Elvis doing flips. I mean, I think there might be an element of tall tale.
Well, I think
to this.
To me, especially those early ones, are always kind of described like a religious experience where it's almost that same kind of like gospel level where you have to take with a grain of salt the miracles being described.
I've heard the audio on a lot of these shows, but I haven't like seen the visual. I think it might be a bit of an exaggeration, but he was like have y'all ever seen the movie he did, Elvis, That's the Way It Is?
Oh, yeah. You
can see like him do Suspicious Minds in that, and he doesn't exactly do flips, but you can see this is no just the fat guy comes on. He's really lean and he's really putting a lot into these
I always find this period really inspiring I think it's why I'm always kind of fixated on 68 is like, and going through this is because this is a guy who's just wants it. Like he knows what he can do and is just like, I gotta do this. Like this is all I have. I've now seen what the rest of life offers me. And I want to do this until I'm dead.
He's getting it back.
Yeah.
He's reconnecting with the audience.
And it is one of those things, right? Where in a real sense, Elvis was, even though the movies were out, he was a non-entity. Like that was the big story of 1968, that Elvis was not Elvis. Elvis was obscured by a large amount of popular culture and a large amount of music, which, this isn't like 10 years of music now. This is 10 years of just incredible innovation and incredible change. And that Elvis was very much a relic.
Yeah. He hadn't had a hit since Crying in the Chapel, a big hit.
I compare him kind of to George Carlin at that same time period because it's that same kind of setup of like guy who really ushered in something and then kind of fell into like a bad parody of obscurity and then kind of comes back and really kind of retakes the crown for a period.
It came at exactly the right time, too, because that year before the comeback was probably the lowest point as far as his like visibility and popularity went. I think the movie he did that year, which was, I think Live a Little, Love a Little, the one with Little Less Conversation in it, was something like his most unsuccessful movie.
Which is maybe one of his best songs, though.
Well, I guess that's a matter of opinion.
But yeah, I mean, it is kind of a clash in a way of him doing cartwheels and flips to Suspicious Minds. Like that's just like a song that That's not a song. Like all
Now,
shook
you
up,
have to-
you would do a flip
Now you
to
gotta
that, but
to contextualize though. Just imagine a Vegas house band and the amount of blow they're on. So it's moving a lot faster than you think.
Yeah,
it's
and
gonna.
Suspicious Minds is
at
always
this
faster
point,
on
Elvis is
stage.
pretty much sober as a judge. Like that's something that's very important. That
Yes,
around this
true.
time, Elvis is not like Elvis was never much of a drinker. He was never much of a smoker. At that time, I don't think he had taken drugs to any real extent.
Since like the 50s.
yeah,
He may have experimented like briefly with pot and maybe acid, but like he didn't take them on a regular
There
basis.
is like one of my like current like music nerd things is like imagining like weird shifts if something had happened, how different it'd be. And like the version where there's like an acid Elvis face is the thing I always feel like the universe is really missing because that could have been amazing.
Well, in vintage Elvis style, I think he had like the mafia boss, like Red West and all them, try it for him.
Yeah.
As like
Yeah.
the king's tester.
you're gonna take it.
Original Sonny are really funny when they're on acid, man.
There's a
They're-
version where like Elvis meets like the Birds or like the Count Five, and like we just get this insane mid-era Neil Young-esque record out of Elvis.
Oh yeah, no. Imagine get him around like Graham Parsons or something.
That'd
like
been
that.
that's truly a thing I get sad probably never happened, is those two never got to be in the same room.
But yeah, I could just imagine Elvis like just being like, "Oh, you put that postal stamp around your tongue, and then we're gonna play touch football." You know, just like some sort of weird MK Ultra style testing of acid, where it's just like, let's see what you know all the Memphis Mafia are gonna do.
I got 3 TVs,
You know, Red, out there on the third down, I think Jesus talked to me.
and he said, "We're gonna punt."
Yeah, I know. All right,
That's the Lord, man. I'm going to do what he says. Bunny, man.
That's why I only do Hail Mary passes.
Oh, you're not running your routes properly there. You know? You're running backwards. You stop picking up flowers.
And it's neat because it ends so sad, but there is a chunk of that story where you do get the victory, and you're like, it's like any good biopic, it like ends before it genuinely falls apart.
Well, I think the thing that's interesting is that from 1968 to 1976, like he was doing sold out shows at the Intercontinental. And the question is like what the draw is. The draw has to have changed over time.
Yeah, of
right.
course.
Where it's just like, it goes from, we're going to see a guy who has been rejuvenated, right? This guy that was full of energy. And then like, I'd imagine around 1974, people being like, all right, we're going to see a demolition derby. We are going to see.
All right, you know, that's a good point. Because remember, we were talking about the different Elvis eras. I've always said that there's a sort of comeback era that lasts from the comeback through about 1973 when he does Aloha, and he has his last big top like 5 hit with Burnin' Love.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then after that, that's when the decline starts to set in because of the divorce.
Yeah.
He starts to get more into the pills.
And
he
there's-
starts to gain weight.
Yeah, and there's the tension that exists when, like, because around 1974, I think, is when Vernon, his dad, started overseeing his finances.
Oh, and he started firing
started
people.
firing
Yeah.
people in the Memphis Mafia, and try. So Elvis is
There's
getting
more
pulled.
turmoil.
Yeah, Elvis is getting pulled away from his like ultra swag lifestyle.
Yeah, and he's
which
getting
is-
tired of like recording and touring too. It's becoming like the new movies for him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't put the same like he's not as inspired as he was
Because he
in that
was a road
first
dog.
part.
Like,
Yeah.
he was legitimately a road dog because he was all like Vegas. He had these long runs, but he was also he was touring relentlessly. Like, they were just working him.
He
to
would
the bone.
intern at Vegas and then he would go on like little tours and shit. Yeah. And
Yeah.
especially by the end when his health was
Oh my
bad.
God.
Oh dear sweet
Oh.
God.
Oh my God.
Oh my, this is like,
Oh. There's enough talk, a little less conversation, a little more action, because this is. I think we're
Rivers, you're an artist.
we're going
We haven't
full
even
bore
tried
into
yet.
food.
We've talked enough about Thin Elvis who can do flips. It's
Yeah.
time for
Time to
us
go.
to take the same.
plunge.
Oh my God.
Can I take a bite now and stop
No, we
fooling
need
around?
to talk.
I feel like there's a serious lack
got
of
the
napkins.
preface.
Elvis
this
would
room.
say we need to say grace.
Yeah,
I think so. You know,
to get all the things out of the way.
Let's see.
I will ask this while Rivers is grabbing things just as a fun sidebar. Have you guys ever seen Clownvis?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Elvis Presley.
I think I'm a massive fan of Clownvis and he's such a good dude. But what's fun is the presence of the Memphis Mafia at the shows, just like in the wings, like eating popcorn ominously. Like, it's such a weird detail, but like they nail it so perfectly. and,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the
look they
Memphis
have.
Mafia is fascinating because there have been so many members. It's like a cycle of
Red
people.
West just died this year.
Yeah.
Did he really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I've
He was a better songwriter than Elvis.
I also got, for the occasion, I got Perrier as well.
For the thing here. Can I get can I eat this damn thing?
Yeah, go
Stop
for it.
fooling around.
Describe it.
This is the section about food. So,
Oh my God.
there was actually a whole book written on the subject of Elvis' dietary habits, The Life and Cuisine of Elvis Presley by David Adler. In the book, Adler quotes Elvis' chef at Graceland, Pauline Nicholson, and she says, quote, "When you think the food is done, cook it some more. Elvis liked his food burnt and cut up into bite-sized pieces." Elvis was known to make a mess while eating. He insisted on being brought a beach towel instead of a napkin, which is why I've given you all
He knew
towels.
what was up.
Thank you for the attention to detail.
Yep. And by the way, his favorite fast food, like Jeff May, Burger King. Actually.
Really?
Yep, that's right. And
We can't all be perfect.
Po Body's nerfect. So
You like
Elvis is.
Pepsi too, Pat.
So when I was talking about this sandwich, somebody, I think, Mr. Goodnight raised the point like, oh, are you going to deep fry the sandwich? And I think there's been a bit of confusion about this because Elvis's favorite snack was a peanut butter and banana sandwich that was, fried the way you would fry a grilled cheese, where it is, it's fried in butter essentially on a skillet. So it's pan fried. But what we're having now is actually the Fool's Gold sandwich, which comes with maybe one of the most legendary stories in Elvis history. So here we go.
Excuse me for a moment, but this is really good.
Oh, I know, yeah. Oh, well, I still have to tell the crowd what you guys are eating. I haven't even gotten there yet.
Bacon. Oh.
All right, so what I'm about to read is crazy, but all the dates have been verified by several sources, but weirdly, these events are never presented as a linear story, but clearly they're all connected. So this is basically just all the books that I've been reading. I put all this together into one story. So on Wednesday, January 28th, Elvis is in Denver for the funeral of a police officer, Eugene Kennedy, who is a brother to Elvis's close friend Jerry Kennedy, who's the police captain of Denver. Elvis knew the funeral would be filled with police officers, so he dressed as a cop, so as not to take attention away from what was going on. And he also
It's something you're allowed to do when you're Elvis.
Yeah.
You're not impersonating an officer.
he had a real Denver police uniform. He was friends with the people, the Denver police. I mean, he was friends with lots of police departments, and we're going to get into that in a second. But he was friends with the Denver police, so they gave him a fucking uniform, and he paid for the whole funeral too, by the way. So after the funeral, Elvis went with several police officers, first to a Cadillac dealership where he bought them all Cadillacs. And so, your friend just died, but hey, you get a Cadillac at the end of the damn funeral from Elvis. And then apparently, after that, they went to the Colorado Mine Company, a famed restaurant in Denver, and it was there that Elvis was introduced to the Fool's Gold Loaf. The Fool's Gold Loaf is a sandwich that we are all eating as close to the specifications as I could get. So to make a Fool's Gold Loaf, you take an entire loaf of French bread. You cover the outside of the bread in butter. You toast the bread for 15 minutes at 350 degrees until the butter is cooked on. Remove the bread from the oven and slice it in half. Hollow out the two halves, filling one side with an entire jar of peanut butter and the other side with an entire jar of blueberry preserves.
Yeah, it's not grape jelly. That's something that people have changed. That's kind of an anachronism.
Yeah, somehow it's gotten down
I've got
that
to
it's...
pace myself, but I definitely will hit another piece, but hit one good.
Yeah.
Does anybody mind if I take this
Do that one.
piece?
Take the king
It's got
piece.
a lot of bacon, man.
That's-
I'm really...
That's you. Just don't drip on my podcast stuff.
I've been...
Then you fry 1 pound of bacon and you place it on top, and then you close the sandwich and you slice it into slices. The Fool's Gold Loaf, which we are all currently eating, is 8,000 calories.
And it's worth every damn calorie, too.
And here's the crazy shit. The Colorado Mine Company sold these for $50 each in 1976.
Really?
Which is roughly...
That's so much money.
It's $220 in today's money.
And that's wild because this is something you could literally make for like
which is why it's called
$8.
It's why it's called the Fool's Gold.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the whole point. and
Really?
I'd always wondered about that. Like, why is it the Fool's Gold? It's the Fool's Gold because the restaurant is mining themed, but also there's an element of like, yeah, you could make this for. I bought all these ingredients today, and I think it was $18.
Yeah.
You could make all this stuff for cheap. But, you're going to pay us a bunch just to eat this ridiculous thing.
I always thought it was just called Fool's Gold because the Fool's Gold was the bacon hidden up in it.
Oh, well, maybe that might be it too. But yeah,
$50 in 19 was it? You said 1976.
yeah, it's
That's like
$220.
Yeah, I was about to say
money.
$200 in today's money.
Yeah. A few days later, now here's where this shit gets crazy. A few days later, on February 1st, Elvis is back in Memphis for Lisa Marie's 8th birthday and to record some new songs. And for some reason, he's brought along Captain Kennedy and Jefferson County Sheriff's Department Deputy Ron Pietrofesso. And on the night of February 1st, 1976, Elvis doesn't show up to his recording session because he can't stop thinking about this sandwich.
I get that.
It's just on his mind, and he doesn't want to sing songs. By the way,
it was always on his mind.
And by the way, the song that they were working on the day before, they were cut in two. It was a cover of Willie Nelson's Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and it was also a cover of Bridge Over Troubled Water, which leads to my theory: if there's a song from the 70s you like, Elvis covered it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So at midnight, Elvis and the two police officers flew out of Memphis aboard Elvis's Convair 880, dubbed the Lisa Marie, and they flew 3 hours to Denver, where they were met by the owners of the restaurant and their cook, Nick Andrulakis, who is where I got the official recipe from, who came bearing 22 Fool's Gold sandwiches, which is roughly $5,000 worth of sandwiches in today's money.
Yeah.
There in a private hangar in the Denver airport over the next 3 hours, Elvis and his friends attempted to eat 176,000 calories of food.
Hell yeah.
They washed it all down with Perrier and champagne, which is what we're drinking here, and flew back to Memphis, having never left the airport. All in all, the late night stack run cost $16,000 and burned 10,000 gallons of jet fuel.
Oh my god!
And by the way, and this is the detail.
This is during the
oil crisis.
Oil crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the detail that it makes. So imagine everything that I've just said, and now know this: Elvis was wearing the cop uniform the whole time.
This is awesome.
He never took it off, and that is the Fool's Gold sandwich. Discuss. I'm gonna have some of my
pretty great.
Yeah.
I don't know how they ate as many as they did, because I am on piece number 2, and this damn thing, I can eat a lot, but this damn thing is filling.
I am breathing heavy.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm trying to. I'm
piece.
trying to think of how many of these Fool's Gold sandwiches I can actually.
In my
eat.
prime, I ate lunch earlier because I was like, all right, I can't. Otherwise, I'm going to destroy this sandwich. I would say I could probably eat 2 to 2.5 slices before I start.
I would say I could probably.
I'd say
eat,
reasonably 3.
I could probably eat 2 of these whole sandwiches. Probably, maybe 3.
If I had performance enhancement,
Then it ups to about a 4.
I could eat a lot of these damn. I look like Elvis by the time I was done with this damn thing.
Yeah, but again, Elvis, he was clean.
Yeah.
Elvis,
And that's what makes it all the more. It's kind of like how Orson Welles was famous for eating like 3 steaks and 2 lobsters.
Oh
in
yeah,
a meal.
no, I brought this up previously on the podcast. If you ever watched the movie F for Fake, during the course of him telling the stories for F for Fake, which is a real/fake documentary.
It's one of those like head exploding things to try to explain to someone.
Yeah, exactly. He's eating the entire time, and you just see the amount of food that passes by him during the shoot. And I don't think they all shot it in one day.
Yeah.
Like he just dusts up, starts a story, and you just see an 8-pound lobster come by him, and then when he's done with the story, it goes back to him, and the lobster is just shells.
Yes.
Like this guy, who could eat more, you think?
Oh, I bet Orson Welles.
Orson Welles or Elvis Presley?
Orson Welles, because I mean, look at how much more room he has to put it in.
Well, but he started as not a huge guy. Like when you look at like Citizen Kane, he was already eating that much in those periods.
He's cherubic, but he's not like he's not like the wine commercials later.
Yes, yeah.
I've said no wine before it's time.
I think, because I would say, I might actually say that Elvis could eat more. It's because Elvis, even though he was like morbidly obese, he still maintained a small amount of physical activity.
Yes.
Like the day in which he died, he played racquetball. As like a morbidly obese guy that had 40 pounds
to morbidly obese.
Well, he had 40. He did have 40 pounds of doo doo in his colon, right? That was just hanging out.
But
like,
some of that's because of the drug.
Yeah, but I mean,
because that backs you up.
Okay, imagine like in the middle of the night playing racquetball, like just yourself right now. Imagine you're living the lifestyle that Elvis did. All the barbiturates, all the food, all that sort of thing. Racquetball is a really intensive exercise,
So you
right?
think it's the racquetball that killed him.
No, it might have been. Actually, it might have been.
Like, now that you say that, I'm like, yeah, no, your body's like, as long as you don't run fast, we can handle these barbiturates.
Yeah, but
and
I
then
think,
you got greedy.
I think the thing was that he would play like, he would do his karate, he would do his flag football, he would play racquetball. So he had the physical activity where he was just eating. He could eat more. It's like The Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Except The Rock is like
eating cod.
Yeah, The Rock is eating cod and doing tons of weight training. Elvis is like just playing some flag football.
That's why Elvis is the king and The Rock ain't.
He's just
I
the
feel like they'd have been
president.
friends.
Oh yeah.
You know what surprised me about this sandwich? It's very mild. It's like with the peanut butter and the preserves specifically, like the blueberries are a lot mellower a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's nowhere near as crazy as I thought it was going to be. Like I thought it'd have that kind of like carny thing where you kind of get that film going in your mouth and stuff like
I
that.
thought the whole thing was going to be deep fried.
Yeah.
It's a lot lighter than I thought it would be for a loaf of bread painted with butter.
Yeah.
It is lighter than you think it's
jaded. We've been jaded by years of hearing about fried butter at
That's the thing. The 70s, as far as like extreme food goes, we got the 70s beat.
Yeah,
to shit.
Because people try now.
Yeah.
Then it was just like, this is a thing. This is a fool's.
They were like,
thing,
this is like a funny thing that people get, and then they're like, nah, we're still humans. Like, we're not going to do that.
Right.
That actually brings me to like a weird thing. I've been like, you ever just chase a thing, fascination for no reason?
Oh, that's what this whole episode is.
I have been for a while on this crazy kick about like vintage commercials, and I don't know what it's building towards, but I have some weird thesis about being able to watch the mentality of America change via commercials over time.
Right. Yeah.
And there's this amazing YouTube channel called 80's Commercial Vault that has blocks of commercials from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yes, I've seen those.
And watching the way commercials evolve like is really interesting, because in the 70s, like, you should try our product because it's pretty good and it might make your life better.
It's about gravitas.
Yeah, and then like there, it's like there's a level of like earnesty and pointedness to it. And then by the 80s, it's like, that hole in your life, like, you should buy this thing because it'll fill that.
Yeah.
And then by the 90s, like, don't buy our product. We don't care. Like, you're not cool enough to own it.
Who cares if you get my buddy or kid's sister?
Like,
that was a plot, by the Russians to sissify this country.
But one of the things from that evolves, and actually I've gone back and I found another channel that does old like drive-in ads from the 50s and 60s, and between those and the 70s, I'm obsessed with vintage food photography.
Oh yeah,
because it's when food actually looked like food and it wasn't like fictionalized made food.
You mean like when you go into like a pizza place or a Mediterranean restaurant and there's all those Technicolor
I cannot
photos.
get enough of that shit. Like
the Mediterranean restaurant, that's spot on. That's exactly what those 100%. Always
people don't realize it, but the 70s actually happened in those colors.
That's my dream. So that just continues to be. I'm like, are you saying it can all be brown? Brown and that color of orange.
Earth tones. That was everything back then.
Yeah.
It was like the Zaire. Does anybody remember that store, Zaire? Did y'all have that?
No.
It was like a Kmart or something like that. But it was that sign, that kind of it was brown, orange, yellow. It was like their logo and inside.
But the thing, looking at this, like, this looks like what like an insane sandwich would look like in that time period where food still looked like food. Like now, you look at any of the like plastic and foam versions of a Carl's Jr. thing, and like I feel like Elvis would look at it and just go like, "What? What are you guys eating now?"
Would you pardon me for a minute? I have to be like Elvis, but I will return from the bathroom.
God damn! Well, we just
we destroyed this plate.
I
thought there would be half a plate still sitting there. No, we rickety wrecked this.
Yeah, we
King would be proud.
Like, it's been less than 7 minutes.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't eat anything today, and I've been on a fucking diet, and that was literally. I'm gonna try to have that be the only thing I fucking eat today. 'Cause God, it was decadent beyond belief, and I've been doing real good keeping down on the bread.
Imagine us eating 22 of these.
Yeah, I feel like this is 4 adult men who are all on vague versions of diets trying to get healthier, going like, but right now, it's our patriotic duty to eat this sandwich.
I'm sort of like Elvis. If I get unhealthy, I make sure I go out and kick some ass.
Well, that's actually a perfect lead-in to.
Here we go.
This is the part that I got so much joy of researching, because it's a thing I've always been interested in, but it just didn't really know the full story. So this section is called karate.
May I give because we've talked about this before, one of my favorite things in the world. Have you guys all been to Graceland?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I love Graceland. It's amazing. And the room no one talks about is the museum installation in the pool house, because that is the area dedicated to his karate.
The dojo,
and the video for it is amazing because it's Lisa Marie trying her damnedest to make the following story not sound insane, because she's sitting in a chair just going, so by the 70s my dad would wake us all up at midnight and then we just do karate in the middle of the night all night, and then it cuts to footage and then it's all the living members of the Memphis Mafia again doing their best to make this not sound crazy.
Right.
Have any of y'all been to Graceland recently?
Last time I was there was 06.
2012, I think.
Okay, it's changed a lot in like the last year.
I know they put in the museum across
There's
the street,
a hotel.
Right?
Oh, really?
They built a hotel on the grounds, like the EPE people. They revamped, the visitor center that was across the street where they used to have the Elvis radio booth.
Yeah.
They've revamped all that and the museums on that end. And I guess they've changed like inside, because the thing you were talking about was actually, I think, the racquetball building.
Oh, yes, that is what it was.
Yeah.
I haven't been there, but from what I've heard here on Elvis Radio, maybe a listener can verify this, they may have changed all that around.
No.
Because remember how the racquetball room became like a museum? When I was in there, which was 2000, beginning of 2014, end of 2013, there was all like gold records and suits and stuff there.
It's a real glass case area. Like it's definitely like a building that they didn't know what to do with, so they kind of like built it into. It's all like house spillover.
Yeah,
because I was always impressed. The house is not.
The house is
it felt very still like lived in and stuff.
The house, I don't think is, and this is something I've actually heard about what they're doing now. The house isn't as impressive, I think, as his stuff. I think his stuff is better than the house
filling,
itself.
yeah.
The car museum across the street was badass,
and the plane, like really seeing inside Lisa Marie, is pretty crazy.
He had, if you go inside that Lisa Marie, you will notice he has the almost exact same track jacket as Mr. Goodnight.
that jacket makes an appearance in this story because it says DEA staff on it.
Yep. Strap in, everybody.
So Elvis was first exposed to karate in 1958 while serving in the army in Germany.
Karate.
The army afforded Elvis 30 days paid leave every year, and he spent that time learning from Jürgen Seidel, who's a German karate instructor. It was during this time that Elvis would also start conditioning his hands for board breaking by repeatedly banging his knuckles on hard surfaces.
That's not necessary. As the Goods from the Woods resident martial artist,
resident martial artist.
That is not necessary to break boards.
Well, it's good if you want to break steel eventually.
In early 1970, Elvis rededicated himself to karate. He trained in Memphis from 70 to 74 under Master Kang Ree, and it was during this 4-year time period under Master Ree that Elvis, like all the other students, selected an animal title by which
Master Kangaroo?
By which he would be addressed in the training area. Elvis first chose Mr. Panther, but then changed that to Mr. Tiger after the rise of the Black Panther Party. Elvis received his 8th degree black belt from Master Ree.
I don't want to be appropriate.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't like the police.
No, so around that time, in the 1950s, 1960s, there were a lot of celebrities that got vanity black belts because there was a karate craze in the late 50s, and then it reemerged during the 1970s.
Karate and skateboarding both went 50s and 70s.
And there were a lot of celebrities that would
cycles.
get vanity black belts, like almost like honorary degrees.
We call them Segals.
Yeah. So Elvis legitimately did karate. Like, it wasn't like Ricky Nelson, who got like a black belt for just being, Ricky Nelson.
I got a black belt in handsome.
So he like when he got his black belt, it wasn't like the level of training that most people get with a black belt. Like, he would do like a intensive 6-week class, and then he ended up with a black belt as opposed to doing karate for like multiple years to get the black belt. It was like kind of a intensive, but it was like kind of partially vanity, partially not. But he started getting like brought up in the number of degrees, right? Because he was basically, he would do karate, but he would also pay for the degrees, right? He would pay for a promotion up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And the thing was that he wanted to be a 7th degree black belt because 7 was a biblical number. It was his favorite numbers. I want to be a 7th degree black belt. It's Jesus' number. But Kang Ree was, I believe, a 6th degree black belt, and there's no way he could be promoted over his sensei.
Yeah.
So they had to like Elvis grease some palms, and Elvis and basically Kang Ree got promoted to 8th degree black belt.
Hell yeah.
So Elvis could be promoted to 7th degree black belt.
If there's one thing we've learned today, it's that nobody wasted their money better than Elvis.
Oh yeah, no, and Elvis and like when I'd read the stories about this, there was just like the whole thing was that it wasn't like he was greasing palms with money. He was greasing palms with Cadillacs because that's currency to Elvis Presley. Oh, you're Kangaroo, you want to hear the Cadillac.
This is the Elvis method of exchange.
Yeah, and so Kang Ree like was just like, oh my God, Elvis wants to be a 7th degree black belt, but I cannot possibly make him a 7th degree black belt. Yeah. So he had to work in like the overseeing karate federation or overseeing body they work for, and they had to have like a secret ballot, like this like kind of like almost like like an emergency ballot initiative amongst the elders.
Kang Ree had to fight and beat Count Dante.
Yeah, and it was just like, I think it was just a vote. It wasn't even a testing.
From like Game of Death. He's just going through the floors.
No, I think he had to like recite a written essay or something like that. Like he didn't even have to.
I like karate.
Webster's Dictionary defines like, martial arts.
I am Kang Ree. I like karate. I would be very good at being an 8th degree black belt because, and then he got it, and then he was just like, Elvis, you can be a 7th degree black belt. No, thank you very much. You know?
So Elvis wasn't the only martial artist in the family. Elvis and Priscilla Presley met karate instructor Mike Stone.
Mike Stone must die.
We're getting there. In the late 60s through Elvis's longtime West Coast karate instructor, Ed Parker. Stone next met the couple backstage at one of Elvis's shows in Las Vegas in 1972. And Stone had been working as a bodyguard for record producer Phil Spector. After the show, Elvis invited Stone back to the couple. There's so many good cameos in this. Elvis invited Stone back to the couple's penthouse suite where Elvis suggested that Priscilla train with Stone. 3 weeks later, Priscilla made the 45-minute drive to Stone's school in Huntington Beach. And because of the distance, Priscilla operated to train with Chuck Norris, who had school in West Los Angeles instead.
But she wasn't fooling around with Chuck Norris.
So then Stone started driving up to Chuck Norris's school to train Priscilla personally. The relationship turned romantic, contributing to Elvis and Priscilla's divorce months later. One of the reasons for Elvis's renewed interest in karate in the beginning of the 70s was due to several anonymous death threats that he'd received, which made him increasingly paranoid. Elvis believed that an assassination attempt was imminent, and he was going to be ready. From 1970 onward, he always had a gun in his boot at all times,
I gotta be ready to kill Tom Jones.
even when performing on stage.
You never know. You might walk by a TV section and like a Sears, and they might have Robert Goulet on the TV.
That son of a bitch.
The karate was just another tool in his defensive arsenal. Elvis was very fond of showing off his martial arts abilities to anyone who'd allow him to practice on them. And this is a story from Alice Cooper.
Yes.
Quote, I got to meet Elvis in 1970. I was at the Beverly Hilton. The elevator opens up and it's me, Liza Minnelli, Chubby Checker,
Holy shit.
and Linda Lovelace.
Oh my God.
This is why the 70s kick-ass.
Wait, you mean my dreams in elevator form?
Yeah, you mean my alternative Mount Rushmore?
I'm actually having Mount Rushmore defaced and having them replace that. Oh my God, that's amazing.
rules.
So we go up. They search us for guns, which was hilarious because
Liza Minnelli is not going anywhere without her 9.
They search us for guns, which was hilarious because there were guns everywhere in the hotel room.
Just in bowls like candy.
Elvis then addressed me.
It's our crystal gun bowl.
Hey, you're the guy with the snake, ain't you? That's cool, man. That's cool. Oh, I wish I thought of that. He then puts a loaded .38 snub nose in my hand and says, I'm going to show you how to take this gun out of someone's hand. Before I could decide what to do, I'm on the floor with his boot on my throat.
Yo, Elvis didn't mess around. Like when he would do self-defense training, he insisted on not wooden knives. He wanted real knives.
Yeah.
Like this guy
He didn't mess around. You're the king. You can afford the real thing.
Legit. Like he when he was training, people say Elvis Presley was a fake karate. Elvis Presley, yeah, maybe he wasn't a 7, but Elvis Presley
He
took
could
it
still
to the
beat
edge.
the shit out of you.
Yeah,
Elvis
no, I mean,
He's not
lived.
Phil Spector, where he's like running away and having
but yeah,
goons
and of
take
course,
care of it.
Mike Stone was the bodyguard of Easy Rider, coked out Phil Spector.
I mean, wearing a
6
cape,
degrees of
picking
separation.
fights in alleys, Phil Spector.
Apparently, that was very common where Elvis would invite over to his, either where he was staying in LA or where he was staying in Vegas, he would invite over just 5 or 6 people that he thought were interesting and just to see what would happen when they all
That
hung
was
out
a very
together.
70s thing, especially for kind of rock stars and artists of that time period. Is you
Yeah.
have these kind of people all wander together.
Right.
I think it's a thing that you don't see as much anymore, but that kind of weird
Yeah.
post Warhol kind of intermingling of different people.
The idea of Linda Lovelace, Alice Cooper, Liza Minnelli, and Elvis, and who else did I say? Oh, Chubby Checker, all hanging out. You're like, that's a dartboard of celebrity names that you just throw in darts.
She keeps twisting.
That was Liza.
You should see my little sis.
Oh man,
God, I love the idea of them just doo-wopping in the room while no one's paying attention.
yeah.
Hey, Chubba, do you know any damn songs inside the twist?
Yeah, I got Let's Twist Again.
I got the Christmas twist.
I got peppermint twist, bro.
So Elvis's paranoia during this time might have seemed unfounded if not for the incident at a midnight show in Vegas on February 18th, 1973. This is from the Associated Press. Las Vegas, Nevada. Singer Elvis Presley got a standing ovation during a show here, but it wasn't for his singing. Presley was on stage at the Las Vegas Hilton when 4 men climbed out of the crowd, interrupting his act. A hotel spokesman said Elvis used a karate-like kick to knock one of the attackers off stage and into a table. So he, like the Undertaker,
I'd
just
stand up
fucking
and clap for that.
threw him off the fucking stage.
That's one of Elvis's high spots.
That's a high spot. A band member tackled another, and the remaining 2 quickly left, being pursued by Elvis's security team. The crowd gave an 8-minute standing ovation.
Thank you, everybody.
When I do my gritty reboot of Buckaroo Banzai, that is the opening scene.
The men were booked for investigation allegation of drunkenness, but Clark County Sheriff's deputies said Presley did not press charges. No injuries were reported. After the fight was over,
I can't be mad. That's the coolest shit I've ever done.
I got a standing ovation. I did a kata.
Maybe we
I just
should have
imagine the standing
I'm having a
ovation,
winning day.
and the entire time it's an 8-minute standing ovation. He's just doing like a kata
There's
the entire
no
time.
question.
But it's
That
not
is
an official
100%
kata.
true.
It's like an Elvis kata where he's like,
Give me something bouncy on the bass.
going way up to it.
front leg round kick.
after the fight was over, Elvis said,
I'll never let any motherfuckers do this on my stage.
Oh my God, yes.
On Mike, he said, if a man wants to shake my hand, that's fine. Oh, but if he wants to get tough, I'll whip his ass.
so,
Elvis 316 says I just whipped your ass.
See, and
then it goes on to say, in a really deep Southern angry voice, as opposed to the Northern voice Elvis usually talked in.
I'm Elvis Presley, and I'm a 7th degree black belt in Kangray karate.
I wish there was video of that because it'd be the ultimate blank destroys a heckler.
And it's and it's funny because his name is Kang Ree, and it's like I always
Kang Ree's angry.
Well, no, I always thought he did taekwondo because of the thing of Kang, but I guess it is like his karate outfit rules.
Yeah, it
he's
sure
the
does.
only person that I've ever seen wear a button-down shirt underneath his karate gi.
So Elvis's TCB band guitarist John Wilkinson believed the attackers were 4 guys from a rival karate school.
This is a dojo fight.
And get this, some accounts of this incident describe the attackers as striking karate poses themselves.
Goddamn Cobra Kai.
Leading to rumors that this whole thing was an elaborate setup staged by Elvis himself to distract the media from his noticeably growing drug problem, resulting in a string of concert cancellations earlier in the month. And for some reason, Rex Martin, the publisher of the worldwide Elvis news service Weekly, keeps referring to the attackers as, quote, the Peruvians. I searched these books. I searched the fucking internet. Nowhere else is anyone talking about Peruvians except for this one guy, but I had to throw it in there.
I just love the idea that one just has like a machete, so they assume.
It's just like,
What I want is a bunch of 5'4" guys from.
I was just trying to point out to
One of them
River,
countries where they eat guinea pigs.
one of them foreign places, man.
Good night. Are we paying attention, by the way, that when someone gets suspicious of a drug habit, we just stage a fight on stage?
I want to be attacked by 4 Inca warriors.
And at the end, I'll sacrifice a few of them to the Jaguar god. I was trying to subtly tell.
real quick, I want to say this is the last thing I was going to say about it. Elvis was convinced that these drunk men turned assailants were actually hitmen hired by Mike Stone, the man who was cucking him at that point. And Elvis, in a rage, ordered the men in his entourage to kill Mike Stone.
That's why I said, what is it? Elvis, what happened?
Yeah.
There's a long description of a strung out Elvis one night going, Mike Stone must die. Red, you've got to hire a hitman, man. You've got to hire a hitman. Just promise me you will.
Do you have anything about his karate movie that he was filming?
The last thing,
He wrote like a format for it.
Yeah, The New Gladiators.
Mike Stone and Priscilla would split up in 1975, and in 1985, Mike Stone sold all of his possessions and moved to an isolated island in the Philippines where he still lives with his current wife. So he must have been damn scared of Elvis.
Wouldn't you be?
I guess so.
Could come back from the beyond and kick some ass. This is Elvis.
I ain't dead.
I ain't dead, man.
Dead. I'll be dead when I kill you, myself.
I love that. Somebody kill Mike Stone.
I'm gonna front kick you in the head and rip your head off, and then I'm gonna die on your corpse.
Stone must die. I'll try to say, I guess, just the Elvis has a really good on-stage meltdown. I forget where it is.
I heard it once.
I don't remember the exact year, but it's really, really good because there's a whole like really pissed off like meltdown, and then at the end of it, I'm going to tear your tongue out by the roots, and then everybody claps and he goes, the most requested song from the Blue Hawaii soundtrack is the Hawaiian wedding song. There's a part though where he gets pissed about reporters saying he's strung out on drugs.
When I hear rumors flying around, I got sick in the hospital. Well, I was, in this day and time, you can't even get sick. You are strung out. Oh, by God, I'll tell you something, friend. I have never been strung out in my life, except on music.
Yeah.
Music was the name of the pill cocktail he took.
Well, then he threatens the reporter at the end of it.
Oh, good.
There's a little bit more.
Sicker that one night I had 102 temperature. They wouldn't let me perform. From 3 different sources I heard I was strung out on heroin.
It was just
I swear to
dilaudid.
God, hotel employees, Jack, bellboys, freaks that carry your luggage up to the room,
Freaks.
people working around, talking, maids. And I was sick. I was had a doctor, had the flu.
This is like a late era Lenny Bruce. He's just reading his court transcripts. You're like, God, this
I
is
told him
awful.
earlier, and don't you get offended, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to somebody else.
And they said I was
That's
offensive.
fine.
Have you ever noticed
They said I
that,
was
like,
disgusted.
that is like
Said that about me.
99% of the Lenny Bruce material that has survived too. So when I was a young comedian trying to learn Lenny Bruce, I was like, this is what people like. This is
I just
genuinely awful.
I just imagine him in like a hospital gown with the back out, and just like they said I was strung out. I just came from the hospital to do the show. I'm not strung out.
I just keep thinking to myself, I'd make him president.
The one thing Pat and I talked about before we started rolling that I just wanted to address is the idea that like the sort of like wanton materialism that everybody points at, like Elvis,
Athletes, and rappers,
is
and
shared very much so by like athletes, rappers, and stuff like that. And I would introduce the idea that Elvis is what we would today call hood rich. Right?
Yep.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
And it goes into the whole thing about his whole like generosity.
Well, yeah,
and
I mean,
giving away
they're-
Cadillacs. and
It's
stuff
kind
like
of
that.
similar to what MC Hammer did in the early 90s.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, well, I mean,
Same
that's
where it's like-
except the buying of race
Well, I mean, that's a thing that gets attributed to people that didn't grow up with money.
Yeah.
They get money, right? First of all, having money in conspicuous consumption, a lot of people say is a way in which you can kind of signal and people won't question the fact that you have money.
Yeah.
Right? Because, Elvis Presley growing up in public housing, it was one of those things where if he was just walking around in like a t-shirt and jeans or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Even though he was Elvis Presley, there would be like a shadow of a doubt in
Well,
his
that's what
mind.
pissed people off about Bill Gates in the 90s.
Well, like status anxiety, right? And with also part of that is also the thing of the generosity, right? The idea of like helping other people out. There's like a double sort of thing where, at least it gets attributed to people that just don't grow up with money, where it's like, not only do I have to prove that I have money, but I also have this money and I'm going to help out everybody to get them out of the situation that they're in.
You know, another thing that's different about Elvis, though, and a lot of other big stars, is that Elvis never left his own hometown. He had places in like Bel Air and stuff, but he never permanently moved to like a New York or an LA or anything. So he still lived in his own hometown, except instead of a project, now he lived in his own little Graceland, castle.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I walked through Graceland, like the overwhelming feeling you have is like, oh, this is what happens if you give 70s white trash money.
Right, yeah.
Like there's ceramic poodle statues and like green mossy shag carpet on the walls to make things look like a jungle.
Yeah,
Yeah, because back in the day, that was a time in which like a signal of your wealth, and this is like completely different than nowadays, was carpet.
Yeah.
If you had carpet in your house and it wasn't linoleum or if it wasn't even wood, like if you had carpet, it was a sign that you actually had money.
And it's a time where we're like, you know what carpet needs is fringe.
Yeah.
So we'll get shag carpet going.
I got
You know, fun of carpet and the love of
The whole
room.
looks like is carpet on the walls, carpet on the ceiling.
That jungle room is pretty cool.
I call it my Muppet room.
Apparently, the jungle room I've heard wasn't originally a den.
No, it was supposed to be an
a
acoustic.
porch or
It was supposed to be recording in too, because like the carpeting did a lot for like the acoustics of the room.
Yeah, I guess when we get to the music, we'll get to the stuff he recorded at Graceland.
Oh no, we can talk about it now. Yeah, because I've
never been fond of it. The production is lousy, and nobody can sing in their own house and have it at the same magic when they just got out of bed upstairs.
Unless it's Prince.
Unless it's Prince, or unless it's Elvis late at night singing gospel with his friends.
Yeah.
But it's a different thing of going into the studio. I'm just going to go in my living room, man, and I can help.
Yeah.
If your child needs a daddy, I can help.
What was I listening on the radio today? What was on the AM? Say, bridge over. It's just like,
leave me down.
all right, what else did I listen to today on the car ride?
I gotta say, man, I liked his Bridge Over Troubled Water.
I'm not a huge fan of the
Here's
song.
the thing.
I'm not a fan of the song either,
Well,
actually.
what's probably happened is that I've been just up to my neck in Elvis for the past week. So I at this point, just like there's so many things that you just really appreciate when you start studying a person. And I gotta say, like his voice, even into the point where people were like, "Oh, he's not as good." Motherfucker got better with age.
Oh, no,
honestly.
he still
his
had
voice
pipes,
was
like,
He
powerful,
definitely had a
man.
mature period to his voice,
Yeah.
but I do think his recording did peak as an artist, did peak somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s.
I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down
So this goes into the section that I have labeled cops. So
Here we go.
And I'd always been like fascinated by this because I'd never even considered why this was a thing. But Elvis was friends with police officers all over the country, and I always just thought it was a fascination as a child. And like one of the funny things I kept running into in the research was everybody would say like Elvis always had a fascination with law enforcement, even going back to his childhood. And then invariably the next sentence is he would hang out at the firehouse and play guitar. And I'm like, that ain't the fucking cops though. What every biography said that. I'm like, what are you
Maybe
talking
in
about?
Tupelo that was close enough.
They're probably
or they're the same
building.
people. Yeah. Because when I was a kid, I lived in a place where the cops were also firemen.
Okay, that's
right.
fair.
So they would cycle out, where it would be like a short period of time they'd be cops, a short period of time they were firemen. It would be like,
I don't know what
they shifted by time. So maybe they did that.
What was the
especially
budget for law enforcement in the rural Depression era South?
Well, and they did make a reference to that. This was like there was a firefighter, I guess, from Tupelo who remembered like, oh yeah, that was that kid who was always just hanging around with his guitar singing songs and shit. So cut to 1954-55 when That's All Right Mama hits and then he becomes a big star. All of a sudden, everywhere this guy goes, it's basically a non-violent riot. It's people going fucking nuts who have to be held back for his protection and his own. So invariably, the guy from an early age, from the age of 19 when he became famous until he died, was constantly surrounded by police officers just for his own personal
Well, and like we've
safety.
been saying, when you have the Elvis type money, you can indulge all your interests.
Yeah, and he was very much a slave to his interests. Like he basically, because he also was very interested, both as a fan and also as a libidinally to women's wrestlers.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he had an obsession with women's wrestlers, both like he loved watching women's wrestling, but he was also turned on by women's wrestlers. And there was a number of women's wrestlers during the 1950s, like I think June Byers and other people like that.
Penny Banner might
Penny
have went out
Banner,
with
that
him?
was the one that he had a long time relationship with.
And a lot of that
was Penny Banner.
might go into the fact, and there's a whole like lurid section of like late era Elvis that I didn't even really like.
May I throw out my
touch on.
favorite tryst he ever had?
Oh yeah.
That he hooked up with Cassandra Peterson.
Oh, it's not
who
the
went
monkey?
on- No. It's
Oh, okay.
it's he and
Scatter.
Cassandra Peterson who went on to become Elvira. When she was a showgirl in Vegas, they had a thing, and he had said like you're one of the hottest women I've ever met. You've got to get to LA and figure a thing out. And he was who pushed her to go out to LA, and then she ended up in Groundlings and doing all the.
She also lost her virginity to Tom Jones.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Yeah.
She did all right as a damn showgirl.
It's true. Do you remember, like in ancient times, there was a Zeus and Hera made that bet: who has more pleasure, women or men?
Yeah.
It's women because they get to fuck both Elvis and Tom Jones.
But one of the things, and this might go into the whole women's wrestling thing, apparently Elvis was like more a fan of foreplay than actual like
Elvis had
Congress.
strange peccadillos.
Yeah, like he was into like
There's nothing wrong with that guy.
nothing.
True,
no,
I agree.
Not at all.
If I had the
Not
beach
at all.
house,
Some of us like to party.
No, and I'm not casting aspersions. All I'm saying is that women's wrestling, that's what that fucking is essentially. If you're
especially at that time.
at that time,
Yeah.
hell yeah. So
It wasn't athletics. It was like hair mares and
like apartment
Right.
wrestling.
Pin me to the ground.
Although, if you mention an Elvis as like celebrity women and Margaret,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
that to me is like that. If he should have,
I feel like you just got a good profile of the difference between me and Goodnight is who we embrace as far as Elvis's conquests go.
You're right.
there is one other thing I wanted to mention. That's Memphis Wrestling, which is that Jerry the King Lawler in his book says that they in 1977 contacted Elvis's camp about doing a karate versus wrestling match at the Mid-South Coliseum. And basically, that was something that was going to happen.
So does that mean the king was going to go over to the king?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
who
he
would
was-
have won?
It was
That's what I
going to
want to
be
know.
the king versus the king was the idea. Yeah, so that's
Who would have laid down
that's
for who in that
insane.
match?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Jerry understands that though he's the king, like there's
Jerry was 100% going to lay down.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
Oh, for sure. Because I think
What if
that
he tried to shoot on Elvis?
I don't know.
I mean, if you don't think he's going to get at least one hard style in there though before he goes down, just to remind Elvis.
Well, let's
who's
say
taking
this
a
though.
fall.
Jerry Lawler, though, I think Elvis could take him. Sorry, King.
That's
but
what I
it's
think
true.
too. Yeah, because
He has the 8th degree black belt, whereas, Jerry Lawler's a great worker. But,
right. Yeah, of course.
I don't know if he's exactly
ultimate
Danny
job.
Hodge or something.
So Elvis collected police badges. That's a well-known thing. So anytime he would go to a new town, obviously he'd be surrounded by a phalanx of police officers. He'd get to chatting them up, and then he would go to the station and then demand to be deputized, usually.
Here is a thing for your comedy fans. If you think about it, Elvis is basically Lookwell from the Conan O'Brien podcast.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like, he is a man who was given an honorary badge and then started acting like an actual police officer, like the plot to Lookwell.
He used to actually go around in Memphis and like there'd be accidents and he'd get out with his police flashlight that he was carried with him. All right, get the meat wagon.
Yeah.
Everybody all right here?
Yep. He
would go out and be like a cop at night.
I love that.
Not just
That's
that.
insane.
Yeah.
He had.
But Shaq did that too.
Sure.
so.
And not
There's something about being honorary deputized that really gives you a lust for power you're not expecting.
yeah, not confirming or denying, but I'm not going to say I've never done anything like that myself.
So
But yours was because you knew those teens had weed and you had to get it.
Well, yeah, and we put this off the air. I do a lot of undercover work for the government. I can't talk about it on the air. But there's a lot of classified stuff.
The privatization of your detective agency is worrisome.
Yeah, it's classified, man. All heavily classified.
So over the last decade or so of his life, Presley acquired at least 5 sheriff badges from Memphis alone.
Damn.
And
he was a big time collector.
So every time they gave him one of these badges, they would give him the position of special deputy, which technically special deputy is not an ongoing
It means child or dog.
It's exactly what it is. It's not an ongoing position. It's just for a one-off occasion. So, like, if the Tennessee fucking Titans win the Super Bowl, then the mayor of Nashville would make them all special
Becoming
deputies.
a colonel in Kentucky used to be.
Yeah. But he took that authority. Elvis had police lights installed inside his fucking limousine and would pull over speeders.
Oh my God.
Randomly. And one of the stories
What do you think it says, man? A speedway?
One of the stories I found that I could never find if it was apocryphal or if it actually happened, but one of the stories there was someone speeding. Elvis pulled him over in the limousine, gets out of the car, goes up the window. It was a woman, and Elvis sent her into labor, essentially. Like, she was so fucking shocked.
But there's your one-stop shopping, because there's your police escort
Yeah.
to the hospital.
And then he could karate chop that umbilical cord.
When I was born, ma'am, I had a stillborn brother, and they kept me in an oven, which is true.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to mention we can't talk about Elvis in the 70s without mentioning the meeting at the White House.
I have a photo of this that hangs above my doorway.
Is that right?
Yeah,
dude.
I got it as a magnet once, and it's one of those things where this is the greatest.
So
I don't know which is better, the Elvis and Nixon or Elvis and O.J. Simpson. They're both pretty great photos.
If you go to the Richard Milhous Nixon Presidential Library in Yorba Linda, California,
God, I want to go.
I've been, and almost all of this stuff in the gift shop is the picture of Nixon and Elvis.
It's the most requested photo from the National Archives.
Yes, it is.
Like that.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to his love of police badges, and having collected all the badges all over the country, the one badge that eluded him was one from the DEA.
There was a movie that came out a couple of years ago, and it was really good. But you'll never see it now because Kevin Spacey was in it.
It didn't come out a couple of years ago. It came out this year.
Last year.
April 22nd, 2016.
It's on Amazon Prime.
It was on a flight. That's where I saw it.
Wow.
And I have to say, the guy who played Elvis didn't look too much like Elvis, but I think he captured Elvis. He captured, I think, Elvis the man, though, better than anybody who played him.
Yeah. But the story is...
Is that who it is?
I think it is Michael Shannon
from Boardwalk Empire and the awful Man of Steel. But they basically what happened, Elvis wanted a DEA badge. He figured the quickest way to do that would be to talk to
take a gun to
someone
Nixon's office.
Someone in the federal government. So he got a extremely decorated set of Colt 45 revolver pistols. I believe they were Colt 45.
I thought they were. It wasn't an automatic like Army type 45.
No, it was a revolver. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think that
a scrimshaw, like
because those are the. I think because of
a presentation,
Nudie, it was easier to get like decked out ones because like Nudie knew a guy and could be like, "Hey, I got you hooked up."
Oh, okay.
So Nudie Cohen
but he was the guy who was buying a ton of those fancied out pistols.
Oh,
at that point.
Yeah,
you've seen his car
to
right?
decorate like
no,
cars.
I haven't. The Nudie mobile,
motherfucker. We gotta go to the Valley Relics Museum.
Okay,
you will be in heaven.
Yeah. All right,
and one of us they have his car, and it's all guns. It's a chromed out gun Cadillac.
I need a car like
it's
this.
the Goodnight Mobile.
It needs to be.
Like the handles are guns and you pull the trigger to open the door.
There's a similar one if you go...
If only you guys could see Goodnight's face right now.
I think I had my first real orgasm.
If you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame, Webb Pierce has a very similar
Yes, he does.
car.
I've
I
seen
think that
both.
was also made by Nudie Cohen as well. But
I never knew he designed cars.
It was, I think it's a rich guy move where it's like, hey, this is it's like the Homer from The Simpsons. Like, I designed this insane car. Make it happen because I have all the money.
Elvis had a Homer. Do you remember that? Elvis had like a car which had all kinds of...
the dome top?
Well, not the dome top, but it had all kinds of things that were about that crazy from the 60s, like a 45 record player in the back.
Yes, I do remember that.
And the Colonel used to actually send it out in lieu of Elvis's personal appearances, his car, which was like Elvis's Homer.
That's a very like 70s,
out.
80s thing I'm obsessed with is like touring famous cars. As somebody who was paid to go see the Bonnie and Clyde death car on more than one occasion.
Oh, y'all went to Whiskey Pete's?
I sure did.
Oh, man, that place is the balls.
That was where my family used to go on budget vacations when I was a kid.
So did Fossil.
Yeah.
And the first
I knew
time
Fossil and I would get along.
Yeah, the first time we went to Whiskey Pete, we all went to Vegas together. We all went in Whiskey Pete. So he stopped there. And he told us this story about when he was first there, he left his tapes on the back of it like his dad is.
Oh, they melted?
He melted his Vanilla Ice tapes.
But he goes to meet Nixon, walks right through all the security of the White House, was able to walk into the Oval Office with 2 pistols, gave them to Richard Nixon, and then talked him into getting him a badge from what was at the time the Bureau of Dangerous Narcotics, and talked him into giving him a badge in an effort to combat the Beatles.
Ladies and gentlemen listening, if you need any more proof than that paragraph that the 70s are better than now.
Yeah.
He knew how to get into Nixon's good graces. It's by crap talking the Beatles, because I think that's how Spiro Agnew became their vice president. Crap talking the Beatles.
These young upstarts must be stopped.
They're coming in with their yoga and their drugs, and I want to rid the influence of them.
You know what? That was funny in the movie with Kevin Spacey. Remember after he says to Schilling afterwards, he goes, "I think I got the badge. I kind of had to throw the Beatles under the bus to do it, but they'll never know."
Well, because the Beatles and him, like they always talk about, had like a weird relation, because the Beatles said the only person they ever felt like they could relate to was Elvis.
Yeah.
And they always felt bad because they could call each other even when they hated each other, because the Beatles know how crazy it is to be a member of the Beatles.
Yeah, exactly.
No one besides Elvis knows how to be as famous as Elvis, so he literally can't relate to anyone.
But I'd imagine that he could only. I'd like to imagine they could only relate to Ringo. Like he only liked Ringo. He's just like, yeah, get the George out. I want to talk to that. Richard.
I've been working on a prototype for an octopus garden.
Yeah, Richard. Let me talk to you there, Richard. How the hell are you doing, man?
He did like Ringo, I think. I think Ringo's got a good ear for country music. But I think he might have become at least nicer on George, because George was such a big Elvis fan that George would see him in like Vegas and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And George was also tight with Carl Perkins.
Yeah. Well, George was the most he
was the cool.
He was the most like steadfastly West Coast of the Beatles, so he would have been in Vegas
and had the most like Americana affinity, I think, of any.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I love Ringo. He's an idiot. He's my kind of guy.
God, that's another thing that I feel like would have happened. Would have been like a Ringo Starr Elvis.
I thought you were going to say that Elvis was going to become Mr. Conductor on Shining Time Station.
I also feel like
Percy was very cross.
I think the first time like the Traveling Wilburys played, like an Obi-Wan Kenobi style ghost to Elvis, sit in the back watching and nodding.
Do you know what I
Man,
think?
Tom Petty's great.
You know
what the hell is Jeff Lynne doing here? There's a weird British guy with a
what they don't say
afro
is that Elvis had taken over Jeff Lynne's body. And that's the true story of how he got in the group, is they had done a seance.
Oh God, there'll be an awful Jim and Andy documentary about it. So this is just one I wanted to read out. And this kind of combines all the things that we've just we've been discussing into one beautiful story. Elvis finished his concert in Des Moines, Iowa on June 24th, 1977, and boarded the Lisa Marie, flew to Madison, Wisconsin, and they landed around midnight. Elvis, and this is important to keep in mind, still in his white jumpsuit with a high collar and platform shoes.
I feel like that goes without saying.
He'd left the building.
Put on his huge aviator shades and DEA staff windbreaker, which is, like we say, almost identical to Mr. Goodnight's.
The moment I have a hint of money, just know this is exactly what I'm wearing.
Oh, yeah. And he gets into the limo en route to the hotel in Madison. This is an eyewitness account. As I approached the intersection, I noticed a limousine stopped at a green light. And I thought the vehicle might have stalled out until I looked to the right and saw in the parking lot of the adjacent gas station 2 men shoving the attendant, a smaller man in a union suit holding a clipboard. As I watched the fight develop, the limo's rear right door was thrown open violently, and out sprung the unmistakable figure of Elvis Presley. He rushed out of the limo directly towards the fight. I jumped from my car to get closer to the scene. When Elvis reached the fight, the two boys were on top of the attendant and they were attempting to strike blows. Without them being aware of his presence, I watched Elvis strike a martial arts pose and yell,
I'll take you two on.
Martial arts. And I can figure the martial arts just.
The attackers turned to see who would address them, and they froze with their mouths agape. This gave the gas station attendant enough time to run back to the safety of the gas station, and I watched as Presley engaged the two attackers, warily asking,
Is this all over now?
Both boys assured Presley that it was indeed over, and they apologized and shook Presley's hand. At this point, Elvis noticed me, and I watched him as he nodded at me and gave me a slight noticeable grin. Eventually, Elvis coaxed the attendant out of the gas station, and after making everyone shake hands and apologize, he took pictures with all three men and said,
I'll find you as enemies, and I'll leave you as friends.
before getting back in his limo and speeding off just as a crowd began to gather.
Into the night.
He would be dead less than 2 months later.
Oh my God.
Oh my
There
God.
was a time where you could just be traveling the country and Elvis could just show up out of nowhere.
Life was better back then. It
A
really was.
275-pound Elvis.
Yeah.
Taking ass, taking names.
I find you
and
as
fucking
enemy.
them.
I find you as enemies and leave you as friends.
Like it's martial arts again.
It's so great.
He's officially become cooler than Ric Flair
Yeah, I mean, shit.
at this point.
Oh, I agree.
I
Ric
think
Flair
that it was like,
cries
because
too
there's a
much.
lot of similarity between him and Ric Flair, like the whole Ric Flair. If you watch the 30 for 30 where Richard Fleer becomes Ric Flair and Richard Fleer doesn't exist. With Elvis Presley, he became not Elvis Aaron Presley, he became Elvis.
Yeah.
You know, and that right there is like very similar, but this takes it to a whole nother level. Cause I can't imagine, Ric Flair coming out of the limo, coming back from the Hilton or the Marriott, and threatening to put a couple of ne'er-do-wells in the figure 4 leg lock. He would probably...
He could give him those stiff chops, maybe.
But he wouldn't... I don't know if he'd do that.
No, Ric Flair isn't legit tough.
Do you guys think that there's a chance in the grandness of our universe that Elvis's final words were Groucho Marx still lives? And that Groucho Marx says, at least Elvis is still alive. Not unlike Thomas Jefferson and John Adams on the day of their unanimous deaths.
Probably.
Because that's a crazy thing on top of everything else. The day he died was the same day Groucho Marx died.
No shit.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
I learned
And I believe
from
it was the
deleted
same-
scene
I
in The
bel-
Devil's Rejects.
And I believe it was the same day in which My Aim Is True by Elvis Costello came out.
Is it what a
Oh, that's right.
what
Yeah.
a landmark day in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
And on the cover, Elvis is king over and over again in that thing in the back. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to mention was the drugs.
Yeah.
And this winds up Elvis's life. So
This is why I should stay from drugs.
but the drugs like me.
So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful audience.
That was Marilyn Manson, man.
So Elvis.
I love all our movies.
Johnny Cash beat me to the 9 Inch Nails, so I had to settle for the second best.
You know what? Imagine an Elvis Rick Rubin.
Oh, that would have been good night. If you don't think there's a thing that keeps me awake at night, is the idea of an old Elvis Rick Rubin album.
Oh my God.
All right.
It's a long, hard road out of hell.
That's Sean Christ. He knows how to rip.
Let me show you how the gods
Kiss the skull.
So Elvis, when he died, died on August 16th, 1977, and
In the bathroom.
in the bathroom.
That's the way I want to go, too.
So as we mentioned, he was playing racquetball earlier in the evening, and his fiance Ginger was asleep, and she woke up to go check on him and found him dead in the bathroom. Upon autopsy, this is gross, 30 pounds of shit in his colon.
I don't think that's what killed him, though.
Well, what they actually there's been a lot of speculation over the years what it was, and a lot of people actually think that it was the strain on his diaphragm that when he was trying to relieve himself basically cut off an aortic valve in his heart because it was so pushed up because of the amount of shit in his stomach and in his colon that it cut off the blood flow of his heart, and that induced the
That's
heart
what
attack.
it was? I thought he just had a heart attack because he had a bad heart. Because didn't his mother die at the same age?
Well, that was another thing. Is like he and we didn't really even go into this that much. Elvis was essentially a kind of a teetotaler. I mean, he was a social there are accounts of him.
He teetotaled, but the stuff he did his actual poisons were really bad for the heart.
Well, that's what I mean for alcohol.
He was doing
though.
like codeine
And salt pills and stuff
Yeah.
because he saw what's the singer like Jackie Wilson sweat a lot
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
So he would take salt pills to sweat.
But basically, yeah, he was just completely overloaded with Dilaudid,
Which constipates you.
If you're listening to this and you have a painkiller addiction, take this as a time to maybe do some thinking about your lifestyle. 'Cause
Yeah.
it is it's fun now, but like those kinds of things are a nightmare. They're the things you don't even think about as taking their toll.
You want to live to kick ass like me.
Yeah.
That's why I do only the safe drugs.
If it grows in the ground, you're probably okay.
But I mean, Elvis had a diaper towards the end.
Yeah.
Like it was that.
Barbiturates are shitty.
It was that bad. So,
No pun intended.
but yeah. So
Thanks, Elvis.
anyway, it's but yeah, so he passed away, and our friend comedian Jesse Case actually is the only person that I know who I believe was either dating somebody or was friends with somebody who worked at Graceland,
He got to go.
and he got to go see the bathroom.
Shut the fuck. Of
So-
course, Jesse Case
so,
got to do
yeah.
that.
There's probably a lot of people though that live around Memphis that might have got to do that because
Yeah.
don't they hire local people as
Yeah.
like the Graceland tours? That's why they're so inspired.
Yeah,
It's the Memphis version of Epcot.
of Club 33.
You can see like the guy that's there is like, oh shit, they got to go over and see Elvis's friggin' house again.
Right. But yeah,
I
so
hate how bad I want to do that.
I know, man.
Like
so
that-
tweet at Jesse Case.
yeah.
Yeah, he's funny as hell. But yeah,
And
so-
also let me and Rivers go do that.
Yeah,
if you
for
live in
sure.
the area and like this podcast, we'll do whatever.
Yeah.
We'll clean your house. Let us see this.
That'll be tricky to do though. GK, if you're listening, George Klein on Elvis Radio. You know we listen to you all the time. My brother quotes, paraphrases, I should say, Butt Rock Brett. He says, ABG, always be Jeekin'. We listen to you every week.
George Klein.
The four of us go down to Graceland. You let us up in that second room, GK.
yeah.
Up in that second floor.
wanna
We know
see it.
Jesse Case too, so we got like all the bases covered.
But yeah, that is Elvis in the 70s, you guys.
I said, see, Rider. Oh, see what you have done. I said, see, Rider. Oh, see what you
Kyle, where can people find you on the internet, sir?
I'm at Kyle Clark is Rad on Twitter and Instagram, and they can listen to my podcast. This is Rad. You can follow us at This Is Rad Pod. It's a show you've all been on it.
I was gonna say,
many a time.
yeah, lots of episodes.
We're our little sister show here.
Totally, yeah.
And it's a show. It's a celebration of things that people like, and people come on and talk about stuff they like because I feel like there's so much snark on the internet, and it's fun to watch people be funny while still being earnest about stuff they think is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have an album out called I'm a Person that's on Spotify and iTunes and everywhere else that you can find stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And definitely check out This Is Rad. And you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegoodspod. Shout out to Richard Eden up there in the North Pole doing the hard work at thegoodspod.com. Pat, what should the folks do when they get to iTunes?
Rate, reviews, and rate, review, subscribe. Tell a friend.
This is like Elvis stage band. Right.
I know. Well, I've been doing Elvis for so much in this episode.
Because if you don't tell a friend, we're going to rip your tongue out by the roots.
And you also want that attitude of gratitude.
That's right.
Yeah, because if you don't, we'll rip your tongue out by the roots again.
And we'll see you next week. The Goods from the Woods was mixed, edited, and distributed by me, Rivers Langley. You can find the show on Twitter at The Goods Pod. Our theme song was composed by DJ Smiles. Check him out on Twitter at DJ Smiles.